The morning air in New York carried a chill that seemed to seep into every corner of the city. David Miller, a 29-year-old mechanic, tightened his jacket as he unlocked the rusty door of his modest garage. His shop was small, tucked between towering buildings that seemed to overshadow his dreams. Business had been painfully slow for months, and the weight of overdue bills pressed heavily on his shoulders. He often wondered how long he could keep the garage running, but his passion for fixing cars and helping people kept him going even when hope felt far away. By midday, David decided to close early. The streets buzzed with taxis, buses, and hurried pedestrians, but he had no customers to wait for. Just as he reached to pull down the garage shutter, a sleek black limousine screeched to a stop a few feet away. The sharp sound of hissing steam escaped from under the hood, and the driver scrambled out with panic written across his face. From inside the tinted window, David caught a glimpse of a well-dressed woman, clearly someone of wealth, looking both frustrated and concerned. David approached cautiously, wiping his greasy hands on his worn coveralls. The driver explained, "Quickly, the car just gave out. We need help." Without hesitation, David grabbed his toolbox. As he lifted the heavy hood, a wave of smoke rose into the cold air. His trained eyes scanned the engine, noting the fuel pump had failed. The situation was urgent. This was not a repair that could wait. While the driver paced nervously, David calmly worked, his rough hands moving with skill and precision. He had repaired dozens of cars before, but never one this luxurious. Inside the limousine, Olivia Turner, a 38-year-old billionaire and owner of a luxury empire, watched curiously. She was used to solutions being bought, not offered freely. Through the window, she studied David's focus, his brows knitted in determination, his clothes stained, yet his confidence unwavering. Time ticked by, but his persistence never faltered. Despite the growing chill, David's sweat mixed with grease as he fought with bolts and wiring. To Olivia, it felt unusual, almost humbling, to see a man pour his heart into repairing her car, without even knowing who she was. After nearly an hour of effort, the limousine suddenly roared back to life. The driver sighed in relief, and David stepped back, wiping his forehead with the back of his sleeve. Olivia lowered the window and offered him a checkbook, asking, "How much do I owe you?" David shook his head immediately, a small but genuine smile crossing his face. "No charge. I'm just glad I could help," he said simply. Olivia was stunned. In her world, nothing came without a cost. But this struggling mechanic, with nothing to his name, had shown her a kindness money couldn't measure. Olivia Turner couldn't stop thinking about the poor mechanic who had refused her money. In her world, people lined up to please her, but always for a price. David Miller was different. His humility had struck a chord she hadn't felt in years. After returning to her penthouse, she replayed the scene over and over. His stained coveralls, his calm determination, his quiet refusal of payment. That night, she asked her assistants to gather information about him. The report revealed a man who barely managed to keep his tiny garage running, yet continued to help customers who couldn't always afford repairs. A few days later, David was tightening bolts on an old pickup when he heard the roar of multiple engines outside his shop. Startled, he stepped out and froze. Parked in front of his modest garage were 3 black SUVs and the same limousine he had fixed days before. From the back stepped Olivia Turner herself, dressed in a sharp suit, her presence commanding yet softened by a warm smile. David, confused and nervous, wiped his hands nervously on his coveralls, not understanding why a billionaire would return to his small, crumbling corner of the city. Olivia walked toward him, holding an envelope in her hand. "David," she began, her tone gentle yet firm, "the world doesn't often reward honesty and kindness, but it should." She handed him the envelope. His rough hands hesitated as he opened it, expecting cash. Instead, his eyes widened in disbelief. Inside were legal documents showing ownership of a brand new, fully equipped auto repair center in Manhattan, registered in his name. He looked up, stunned, unable to find words. Olivia smiled, her eyes glistening. "You gave without expecting. Now it's my turn." For a long moment, David stood frozen, overwhelmed by the life-changing gift. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Why me?" Olivia's gaze softened as she replied, "Because people like you remind me what wealth can't buy. Character. I've built empires, but your selflessness moved me more than any business deal ever could." The sincerity in her words struck David deeply. Around them, her assistants looked on quietly, respecting the weight of the moment. For David, who had always felt invisible to the world, this recognition from someone so powerful felt like the universe was finally rewarding his silent struggles. In the weeks that followed, David moved into his new workshop in Manhattan. With modern tools, a spacious facility, and steady financial support, his business flourished almost overnight. Customers filled the bays, not just for his skill, but for his honesty and humble spirit. Yet through it all, David never changed. He still offered free repairs when someone truly couldn't pay, remembering the day that kindness had changed his own life. Olivia occasionally visited, not as a client, but as a friend. What began as a broken-down limousine on a cold street had turned into a bond built on respect, generosity, and humanity.